Good morning, everyone. So today I am going to be doing a tag. And it's not my first tag, but we'll see if this makes it to YouTube or if this stays on Instagram. Um, this is a tag from Tarot Magpie. So Sylvie over in Tarot Magpie created this awesome tag called Taromance Tropes. So it is about how there are certain romance tropes and which deck matches those romance tropes. So the first trope is enemies to lovers, and it talks about a deck, a style, a system you insisted just wasn't for you until you realized it was. So I have two decks for that because they're kind of in the same style, although one is probably a little more overt than the other. So the first one is the Terra Volatile. This is a deck that is very esoteric. There's a lot of mysticism, symbols, sacred geometry. It's a very dark deck. And when I was starting out in my tarot journey, I was very intimidated by all of this stuff. And I just was like, that's not for me. I want something that, doesn't have that many layers, that is simple, easy to read for beginners. And then just the imagery, I think it was one of the first darker decks as far as imagery that I had seen. And I just was like, I don't know that I can handle all that. Like in the Pope or the Hierophant, those are his balls in a dish. I mean, and then I realized I have a dark little soul, and I like this imagery and this kind of vibe. And then the other one that I was convinced was not for me, and I always point to this as the definition of don't judge a book by its cover. Let me actually put this away first. I have some of the extra cards in there, not all of them, because God knows they would not fit. This has so many expansion cards. It's great, but I need a bigger box. Okay, this is the one that is truly enemies to lovers. This is the Somnia Tarot. I had seen this on a friend's tarot account, and I was terrified of looking at all these figures that basically came from nightmares. Like the deck is about the creator's interactions with sleep paralysis and the characters that would show up for him. Is characters a good word? Figures. So you would see a lot of faces hidden, a lot of hooded figures, like, oh my God. Really, really, I would say scary imagery when I saw it on Instagram, when I saw it on YouTube. And this is all photography. This is the creator, I think, and like he strapped this dollhouse that he made to his back and then set it on fire and then took a picture. It's amazing. Now, the thing that made me realize that this is actually for me, when I got the deck in hand, I was not creeped out at all. I thought I would be, but it almost seemed neutral. It seemed like the faces not being shown just made it easier to remove any sort of bias that I had when I was reading the cards. And there's so much emotion in each of these cards. Like it's transportive. It takes you into a different world. But I started, this turned the tide for me as far as what decks I explored adding into my collection. I started looking at this as just amazing art pieces that I could use to read with tarot. And that really influenced my decision making as far as, I don't know, just looking at purchasing decks that were maybe a little out of the ordinary or out of the realm of what I thought was my comfort zone. So I got this deck from Mystical House. I still have the embroidered ribbon that she used and it was beautiful. So I keep it. I keep it in its mesh bag. The second prompt is Friends to Lovers, and this is a deck that I liked well enough. Then I read with it, and it deepened or changed the relationship. Okay, so that deck is the Wisdom of the Shadow. Now, I like this pretty well enough when I saw walkthroughs, when I looked through all the cards, when I read excerpts from the guidebook. But then what I did was I worked with this, and there are how many cards? 42? 44. I worked with a card a day for 44 days. And that really deepened my relationship with this deck. Like, it was transformative work. And I don't reach for it very often now, but I know I'm keeping this for a long, long time, because just the relationship that I built with it, like it was definitely a deck that I needed in a very wounded season in my life. And working with it, a card a day, man, it really brought a lot of healing into my life. And I feel like at some point I will do that practice again, maybe next year. But yeah, it's beautiful, it's evocative, and it's so raw. It's like rage painting. I love it. So that is the Wisdom of the Shadow Oracle. I should have said I'm not just going to be doing this for tarot decks. I'm totally going to be doing this for oracle decks as well. Let me just put that back. Where did I put the book? Where did I put the book? Oh, right under it. And then we have the Force Proximity deck. So this is a deck that I used for a month, took on holiday, made myself work with it, and it changed my relationship with it. Now, this isn't really something that I forced myself to do. I wanted to do this. I created this deck with the help of AI. This is a personal deck. It is a deck that I wanted to show like representing my Indian cultural heritage. So I do love it. I have worked with this a lot because I created it, and I am in the midst of creating the guidebook. But basically, this is a deck that really borrows from my Indian culture, my Indian heritage. I wanted to see myself represented in tarot. I wanted to interpret the cards in image the way that I felt them in my soul, in my head. So, for example, if we're talking about the world card, this is the Om symbol. It's a symbol for the universe for me. If we're talking about the wise one or the Hierophant, it's an equal learning, and it's not just from a wise old figure, but youth can also teach a wise older person as well. There's wisdom in youth, there's wisdom in age, and also experience. And for example, the Ten of Daggers. To me, the Ten of Daggers is kind of feeling like you're at rock bottom in a situation, and it's not really that way. And I wanted to have this image of this peacock piercing itself, because as you pick at a scab and a wound, you make things worse. So it's that kind of imagery and that kind of symbolism that drove me to say that this is my force proximity deck. So that is my, as of yet, unnamed tarot. I can't land on a name. I don't know what to do. Okay, and then prompt number 4 is the Soulmates. This was just meant to be. This is a deck you fell in love with immediately. I have one oracle and one tarot deck for this. And the tarot deck that I have is the Lonely Dreamer Tarot. This is the 3rd edition. I first fell in love with the Lonely Dreamer Tarot, the 2nd edition. It is a beautiful deck. It was just meant to be. These are extra cards. I keep it in this beautiful pouch that, come on, it matches. And it's such a gorgeous, gorgeous deck. It was my first found art. Is it called found art deck? Beautiful backs. And it was my first linen deck. So just that experience of like, oh my gosh, this is how you can shuffle a linen deck. It feels amazing. It was immediate love. And I was obsessed with this deck. I would look up the artwork. I would try to find descriptions of it, which are very hard to find because mostly you'll just see the name and the artist. And all of this is artwork by Odilon Redon, curated and edited by Melissa Witherspoon. And it's an amazing, beautiful, tugs at my heartstrings, emotional experience whenever I read with this. So that is my Tarot Soulmate deck. Let me just get it back in its pouch. And I wanted to I commissioned this pouch because there was a sort of styrofoam pack on this, and it would move a lot, and the cards would move around. So I got the pouch. These are extra cards that came with it, like an expansion pack. It's a beautiful, beautiful box. And then my soulmate, that is my Oracle deck soulmate. I mean, if you know me at all, you will know that it was obviously the Reclaim. I love this, and my only regret is that it took me forever to pick it up. This is the 3rd edition, the latest edition. It is absolutely beautiful. The images themselves were not necessarily why I picked this deck up, although they are very evocative. But it's the guidebook. It is just this card and the reading from the guidebook just made this my soulmate immediately. So I will read from the guidebook for this card, which is the rejection card. Rejection is painful because of what it makes me do. When you say no to what I am, when you say no to what I feel, I am forced to discard the part of me that doesn't fit in your perfect picture. I lose myself to remain close to you. I become afraid that the whole of me will never be enough for you. Yeah, that it's like it saw me. It saw me. And I have no words to adequately describe how connected I feel to this deck. It is the deck that has made me cry the most. It is the deck that has made anybody that I read for cry the most. Like, yeah, it's a lot. And then prompt number 5 is the Slow Burn, a deck that I didn't have the best first impression of, but the more I worked with it, the more I liked it. And that is the Lubanco. I sat on this deck for months, and then it wasn't available. And then there was a second printing. And even then I was like, will I like it? Because there's really strong imagery here. And there were 2 cards in particular that I will show. So if you're triggered by nudity or you're triggered by just raw imagery, sexual imagery, you may want to look away from the Lubanco. But the more that I worked with it, those cards are now actually my favorites from the deck. I love how unapologetic this deck is. I love how the artist, the creator, did not conform, that they were just unashamed and proud of their creation, so much so that when they were offered publishing deals for this deck, they didn't accept because they didn't want to tame it down, or like it's very raw. They didn't want to tamp down the energy of the deck, trying to get those 2 cards, because again, they are my favorites now. Oh, this is one of my favorites as well. But let's see if I can find it. Is the Devil. Yeah. And the Lovers card. It's so, how can you not have a reaction, right? Like, how can you not have a reaction? And it's like seeing shadow parts of myself that I feel uncomfortable with, that I have learned to integrate. So this is, to me, a massively confronting and healing deck. and I absolutely love it, but definitely it was a slow burn to sort of work with it and feel like I could integrate or accept parts of myself. That's what it was, really. And then prompt number 6 is opposites attract. It's not my usual style, but I love it anyway. I also have 2 decks. The first one is the Heartscape Tarot. Now, if you've seen my decks, you will start to get the theme that it's very like dark, um, very like not cutesy. Maybe my Indian deck might be the closest thing to that, but I still think there's very dark themes in this. This is a solid, magical, imaginative, beautiful, cutesy deck. It's cute. It's cute as hell. Um, it's very like Ghibli vibes, and I I connect with this deck so much. Like it doesn't feel cutesy when I look at it, when I read with it rather. I can objectively, I mean it's a unicorn or it's a Pegasus. I objectively know that this is very cute imagery. Look at that dog jumping around in a field and the cats. There's so many cats in this deck. I love it. But when I read with it, it doesn't read as cutesy. It reads gently but firmly, and it's just such a beautiful, beautiful magical deck. So I love that about the Heartscape. It's amazing. It's just amazing. And then the other deck that was totally not my style, but I immediately loved it, like from the jump, is the Tarot of Aphrodite. I am not into pink. Pink is probably the color that I absolutely don't have anything of. And the next color would be white. Like, I'm just not. My favorite color is black and then gold. I mean, so it's more the pink and the fact that this artwork, I mean, it's found art, but a lot of it is very sensual. I mean, there's a lot of nudity. It's a deck that's based around Aphrodite. Like, it's very romantic. It's very sensual. It's very sexual. It's very fierce. It's amazing, and it's not my style at all. But I wanted a deck that could help me tap into my sensuality, and that I could work with, because there are decks like that in the tarot world, but they just felt so explicit to me. And for my history, which has sexual trauma, it just didn't feel safe to work with. But this feels very safe to work with for me, even as it does challenge me. And I love, love, love this deck. And now I'm even like, I guess I like pink now. Like that's how I feel now. I guess I'm a pink person, at least for this deck. And look at that gorgeous gilding. It's amazing. And the guidebook is also so helpful. Comes with an affirmation for each card that helps you connect the artwork to the tarot meaning. And then we have prompt number 7. This is the blind date. It's an impulse buy, a gift, a deck I got without much research, but I ended up really loving. This could also fall in the opposites attract, to be honest with you. This is the Align Heart Affirmations Oracle. I got this secondhand. I saw it come up. I saw one card in particular, and that's all that I needed. But again, very cutesy. It almost looks Sailor Moon-like, or Cardcaptor Sakura kind of. And then you look at the cards, and it's hard to read, but it says, I don't need to be useful to be worthy and deserving of love. You know who you are. I dare to love a little more. I treat myself with the love and respect I wish to receive from others. I allow myself to rest and recharge without feeling restless or guilty. Oh, this is a good card. I harm myself when I try so hard to be good at the cost of my authenticity and mental health. This deck is the best impulse buy that I have ever done. I call it my intensive Care Bear deck, and it is like a Care Bear that will punch you in the and put you in the intensive unit, like with just truth and forced love. like it's like, you will accept my love, dang it. So it's amazing. Um, and then we're on to prompt number 8. This is the second chance. This is a deck that I plan to get rid of that worked its way back into rotation, or a deck that I did move along and ended up repurchasing. I don't technically have either of those, but I do have a deck that I have loved in the past that I have not been able to use for months. And I don't know why, but whenever I think about rehoming it, I just can't. So this is my deck that I hope I will have a second chance with. And this is the Sasarai Beto Tarot. I learned so much from this deck. It is beautiful. The thing with this deck too is it chips really easy on, like, the gold metallic edging just chips really easily. But it is so beautiful. It's close-ups, and I don't know what it is, but I connect so much with the imagery of the deck. But when I try to read with it for more than one card now, I can't seem to do it. So I kept telling myself, well, maybe it's just time I move this on. Maybe, it was there for a season. But every time I think about it, I'm like, no, nope, can't do it. And I love that the majors have these quotes in the guidebook. And I love this, Eight of Cups. I mean, let me just read a quick description from the Eight of Cups in the guidebook. So the creator's talking about the imagery, which is a woman cutting her hair. I find that in the past, in times of stress, I cut my hair. I feel like I'm actually disposing of the past, the extra weight, the dry ends, the old me. This is akin to shedding your skin to make room for new growth, for reinvention, and a feeling of lightness. It's so deep, but also so simple in its execution. And I very much badly want to continue working with this deck. And that is going to be my second chance deck. Number 9 is the Unrequited Love deck. I love this deck. It doesn't love me yet. So I do love this deck. This is a rare deck. It's out of print. This is the Yokai Yochi Tarot. And I cannot bear to part with this, even though it doesn't love me back, because it is the most beautiful deck. Like, the gilding is beautiful, the linen finish is amazing, the way this deck shuffles is insane. I always cut a smaller piece of the pile to shuffle, but like, it is buttery. It is just buttery. And the imagery of yokai, it's so amazing. It doesn't read very well for me, but I think I'm happy with it just being a collector's item in my collection. But I do want to read with it. Who am I kidding? I really want to be able to connect with it more. So we're working on it. It's unrequited at this moment in time, but we might get there. Who knows? So that's the Yokai Yochi for my Unrequited Love prompt. And then finally, the Love Triangle, 2 decks in competition with each other, or a pair that I always work with together. So you've seen these decks already in this prompt, but the pair that I always work with together is the Reclaim and the Align. Now, why do I do that? This is so... it punches a hole in your gut, and this tends to compassionately take care of the wound that you needed to have. And that's why they're a great balance for me. Sometimes they can both be very, like, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes they both hit hard, but when I use them together, it's magic. So that is the Love Triangle. So those are my tarot and oracle decks. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. Oh boy. So, I'm not great at this stuff, but yeah. And there are others that won't fit. Thank you for joining me. Take care. Bye.